All right, so today I want to talk about the concept of applying insights across clients in the same industry or vertical that are facing the same problem, and in general, helping similar types of people. So there is one type of niche recently that I've been just getting a lot of clients in. It's called UGC. And if you're familiar with it, you probably understand how much this industry is rising, how it's increasing, and how many more people are just entering. So you have softwares offering DIY help, also with done with you tiers, all funneling into UGC, and then you have agencies. Put this like this so it's a little bit easier to see. Right, so there's agencies offering done with you and done for you help. Essentially, these two people are helping the same types of people, meaning brands and apps who want to scale with UGC, which is user-generated content, which is a form of lead gen, which is posting a ton of content authentically with creators. So with the hopes of one video going viral, and since it's like a very authentic type sale, it's not like it's a paid ad. People are more inclined to take action when it's less, when their guard is up less. So the ICP, ideal client profile, of these two types of people, both software and agencies, happens to be apps and brands. Now, the big distinction here between agencies and software is that apps and brands are coming to these two types of people for different reasons, and that is attracting different types of apps and brands. So you have problems that they're facing, which is causing them to look for help, right? Some of the problems that an app or a brand might be dealing with that causes them to look for help with UGC usually involves a couple things. There's about 4 different ICPs that get attracted to UGC. So you have one new and catching on with a trend, curious. Typically, this is like someone is brand new to the idea of this. They're seeing someone go viral. They're seeing how this hundreds of millions of views is basically like just changing this person's business and the trajectory of their life. So they're like, oh, I want to get a piece of that as well. But they don't really understand how it works. They don't understand why they would pay so much money for this. They don't understand what's involved. They don't understand the actual like realistic output they can get. They're just uninformed optimism, like they like to call it. And if you know the trend that goes in terms of like any new opportunity, which technically for an app or a brand looking into UGC for the first time, it is a new opportunity. You're talking about the idea that you have people that are new and curious, and it's just uninformed optimism. So it takes a lot more education to actually get these people to the point where they're going to be paying. I mean, you could talk about an agency. Nowadays, we're talking like because of the creator fees and because of the amount of infrastructure that needs to happen and because of the tracking and the people, it's just such a big people business. We're talking like anywhere from like, I'd say like 6K to like 40K a month for these fully done for you systems with no guarantee that you're going to go viral, which is why these also retainers are so low, because it's just you can't really tell what's going to happen. Now with software, it's anywhere from like $50 a month to $9.99. I have a client that's selling a $9.99. I have a client that's selling anywhere from like 25K a month. In general though, like those are like the averages, right? So it's much harder to get someone who's new to pay this price, especially before they're exposed to the problems that happen when they do it themselves. So it's very nice to get these new people into a small trial that gets their hands wet, their feet dipped into the waters, right? It's very hard to justify higher price. And all that happens as the price goes up is more problems are solved. And if someone is facing a problem, trying to do this thing themselves, and they understand it really well because they feel the pain and they're trying it themselves, it's so much easier to come to them and be like, hey, you're dealing with this really painful thing on a day-to-day basis. Now, depending on how, painful it is and how expensive it is, that's how much money that they're going to pay to solve it. So you have like, I'd say 4 different main problems that are being solved when it comes to like actually doing UGC properly. You have, I'm going to try to swap this here. So you have like your hiring. I don't know why I did that. With hiring, there's just like so many different things that goes into it, right? You have to like understand where to find people, right? You have to reach out to them or make job posts, which makes you have to think about a job post, right? And then you have to post it, and then you have to be resilient enough to go out and find more people to apply. It has to be good, and you have to have a brand, and you have to have a good offer, because if anything, at the end of the day, in order for someone to do something, it needs to be an offer so good that they feel stupid saying no. And when there's tons of other apps and brands, especially with the industry growing as fast as it is, I think it's growing anywhere from like 20 to 30% every year. You're talking about lots of brands and apps looking for creators. So creator has abundance of opportunity at this point if they're a good creator. Essentially what happens is that's problem one. So there are platforms out there that are solving just the problem of hiring, and they're charging accordingly. Now, what happens after you hire is that you still have to manage them, and you have to train them, you have to give them a brief, and you have to actually make sure they show up every day, so you have to manage them overall. That's like another problem in itself. What if there was someone that did the management for you or helped you manage it, right? Depending on if it's a tool or if it's an agency. Then you have to make sure that they actually perform, so you have to track their data. So what if there was just a data analytics tool? Well, what makes a good data analytics? You have to actually connect to the platforms and like see the amount of views, see the amount of comments, see the amount of likes, see the amount of see the amount of people that save the post, see the amount of followers, see the engagement, and the hardest metric of all, see the amount of revenue that was brought. So that's attribution, right? So there's attribution softwares that actually do that. So as you can see, the price keeps going up, the problems that you solve. And you might have just a job posting platform, and then you just have an attribution platform. Those can probably charge similar prices, but you combine them into one, and you increase the price. We're getting closer to the $9.99. Well, what happens after you have attribution? Well, you have to manage these systems at scale in order for you to actually be able to hire multiple creators and track them, and then also pay them out, which is another topic. Payouts, usually like a percentage fee. Can't really justify a monthly reoccurring charge for that. It's just more like a tiny fee that you'll charge for the lack of brain fog and just like paperwork and spreadsheets that you have to deal with on yourself if you're doing the payouts. And I mean, you look at all these problems that someone's going to solve by doing it themselves. Maybe they pay for some help done with you, or they skip the line and they just go over the done for you, which is where that price comes from. But remember, if you're a newbie, you're not going to be paying $40K a month until you understand all the problems that come in line. And before that, you have to also be sold on UGC. Like you have to be completely committed and willing to like actually believe that this thing can work for you because you've seen a relevant case study, because you believe it can happen for you, because you have a good app that fits it. You have a good funnel, you have a good product, right? And it's really simple to understand. Like these are all prerequisites that people have to understand that if they have, they can crush it, and they need to believe it can work. But after they're sold on UGC, and whether that's lowering their cost per acquisition, whether that's building trust at scale, you also have to be sold on creators versus influencers, which is like another style of content, because the benefits of content is different for influencers and creators and other types of content, right? You could post like outbound content, you could post LinkedIn, you could post YouTube, long form. It's like short form versus long form, right? You have to be sold on short form. Assuming that you have a low ticket brand or app, you're not going to have like high ticket LinkedIn posts. You're not going to be posting long form threads. You're not going to be posting, things that are more educational for higher ticket, right? The higher ticket you go, the more education you need. So assuming that the ICP of these brands are only doing short form, there's so many ways to go in short form. Like you could do street interviews, you could do launch videos. So those are like the main ones actually. Now that I've realized, I could just list them all here. You have like, if you're talking about short form, you're talking UGC, influencer, street, interviews, and then you have like launch videos. And then you can run boosts. And of course, you can do paid ads. So I want to talk a little bit about ICP number 2. And we're going to get closer to the point where someone can pay $40K a month. But these guys are so uneducated that there is no way that they're going to pay $40K a month unless they are educated and then know where they're spending their money, and they tend to have a lot of money. I never said that these guys are broke. I just said that they're not educated. So the next thing is DIY failed. Failed, whatever. These guys have tried one of those processes that I just talked about, and they messed up. They might have an ego so big that they don't really want to admit that they messed up, so they'll never be in the market to try and ever fix it again. Those guys are out. Now, there are the people that are still optimistic and understand they might have done something not right. They might have used a DIY platform and only solved one of those problems, but there's so many different problems that they needed to solve in order to succeed. So if someone comes in and educates them about the whole process that goes into a successful UGC campaign, then the gap is naturally widened. You don't know what you don't know. You're just like, they enter the optimism and then they became pessimistic and gave up. But if someone shows them the opportunity of what's left and what can still happen, which is why people hire so many agencies, going back to this 6 to 40K again, right? Because people don't want to mess up themselves, so they pay for help. Or there's like another tool out there, which is like bridging the gap between the 50 and 999, that helps them solve another problem that was really painful before. Call it like analytics. They didn't know what was working. So that's why it's important to know, who you're talking to and what they think about what they tried. Because then you can talk to them specifically about like, here's what you tried, here's why it failed, here's what you probably think the solution is, but here's a unique, like new or different way, and here's an actual case study of someone just like you that succeeded when they did this switch. There's the mental switch. Now they trust you, and then you expand the gap by educating. But these guys are much more likely to actually like go for the agency service because they understand the value of a done-for-you service if you hit the dots, whether that's through your long-form content or whether that's through other forms of content, emails, content, through YouTube, long form. I like to use sales assets as well. Any touch point, even like a call, like a phone call is technically long form content. It's actually live. Quick side tangent, but the pillars of trust when you're talking about long form content, and this is more towards you not brands, but you agencies and softwares in the UGC space or in general, like in the done for you or done with you space, like B2B services in general. I should have just said this is for B2B services because it does apply to all. But the pillars of trust, real quick, this is live, video. You see someone live, like you feel their presence, you feel that energy, like they're not going to be lying to you unless they genuinely hate their reputation. That's like live video, right? And then you have like live audio. Then you have recorded video, long. So YouTube videos, right? Like these longer form YouTube videos. And then you have like recorded video, short. So you have less time to build trust with them. You have less touch points. You have less seconds with them. So you still get it. Like you're seeing their face, but it's short. And then you have, text, long. Actually, you have 4.1, which is image. Because static images, you see things, you don't just read it. But you can also have like text, like a post with a picture. So now they trust who they're actually reading the post from. And then you have like text, short. Like someone writes one sentence on Twitter and they have like a random profile picture. Probably not going to trust them as much. It might get you in the door, might get you to click, but unless you have all those other touch points in place, it's impossible for you to spend that much money with them. But then again, you have brand, which goes into picture, which is like, if you have a good brand, you don't need to see a picture of someone. You just need to read something and like get the brand. You get what I'm saying? But then you have like long form case studies on there. You have long form videos versus like a short form testimonial of someone like speaking about something that they sound pretty scripted about. Those are two very different things. To wrap this concept home, you have the DIY failed. You have different versions of DIY failed. So you have like in-house. So they tried this themselves in-house, or they use an agency. Two very different people, because the agency person that failed, if they hear another agency come out with like this unique method and they know why their other agency didn't like succeed, they are aware of what bad looks like and they are aware of what good looks like. So they're more open to another agency because they already trust in not wanting to do it themselves and that people can help them, but they don't want to, feel that same pain that they had last time because maybe the agency didn't do a good job tracking. Maybe the creators were low quality. Maybe they didn't hire enough creators. Maybe they didn't test enough, right? By the way, I touched on those bullet points of what goes into a successful UGC campaign, and that is not by any means an actual like breakdown. There are so many things to think about. You have testing velocity, you have the actual angles, the hooks, like the style, the style of the actual content, where it's posted, when it's posted, who it's posted by, how warm the accounts are, the volume, the analytics, and like all these different things, right? So take it with a grain of salt. But you have the in-house people who DIY'd and failed, and they tried it themselves, so they feel the pain. Very different people. They're also very different levels of how much they're going to pay based on how much they want to get rid of from that next time around that they try UGC. And then lastly, if the DIY failed, I also like to say that you have the paid ads into UGC exploring. Similar to new UGC, but it's very different because they're running paid, so they already know how much value is in paying behind views and paying behind conversions. So when it comes to paid ads, if someone's already spending a lot on paid ads and they understand that content will actually come in and give them the angles that they need in order to succeed more with paid ads, because they understand the hooks and the angles that work really well, and they understand what organic taught them that they can just amplify with money behind them. With a lot more money spent into paid ads, lower cost per acquisitions, higher return on ad spend. These guys are a lot more aware, very different than the people that are just brand new and curious to the idea of like content and the idea of spending money on marketing. I should have clarified. Those are obviously two different people. The person swinging that bat with a lot of money put into marketing at the first time is very different than the person who's already swinging but in a different method of marketing, and they want to try something new and they want to expand. It's more of an opportunity, right? And then you have the people who are just opportunistic expansion. They might be already spending money on a UGC agency. They might be already spending money on a DIY tool, and they just now want to just more. They want to do more. They want to test agencies. They want to see who does better. They want to learn new strategies. They don't care as much about money. They care about market share. They care about competition. They care about their brand. They might want to be expanding into another like globe. a country in the globe. So like those people are usually enterprise. They have different incentives and it depends where you're going. But to wrap this home, what I think is super important for any B2B service company watching this, that might be a software or an agency, because you guys are both services, is to understand where you sit in the landscape, understand how much do you take off of your customer's plate, how aware are they, and are the reasons why your conversions are low or not as high as they could be, anything correlated to the fact that people aren't at the right awareness stage of what you're marketing, or that you don't provide enough value and that people are facing too many problems later, so they're naturally going to churn. Could you expand the problems that you solve? Could you take a unique approach in the midst of all these new platforms and agencies coming out in the UGC space? If there's anything that you take away from this, understand your positioning, because people perceive you as what you are right now. They perceive you as deliverables if you just offer a certain thing. But if you position yourself as solving a specific problem in the market and helping out a specific type of person out of those ICPs that I talked about with one of those parts of the journey, then you automatically differentiate yourself. And that's what's been working really well for my clients in the UGC space, whether that's a platform or an agency. I've been working with both, and even in consultants that all have different levels of people that they help and also just different things they provide. So let me know how it goes applying this. And if you also want help scaling up your UGC agency or platform, I have a lot of data of what's working right now in the market. And there's tons of different position statements and overall like offers that can crush if you just take that unique approach. And we get to figure out like what is it that makes you different, and what you can actually provide, and who we can help. So if that's interesting to you, then check out the link below. There's more information on how exactly I help businesses like yours and more case studies if you want to check out exactly what we've done. But aside from that, I hope this was valuable, and I'll see you guys in the next one.